All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce event on how to navigate your business through this new norm guidelines of Miami-Dade County. We're going to get started in a few. Just waiting for one of our panelists to get on really quickly. So give us a few moments as we get this together, and we will be following back up in just a few moments. Thank you very much.
There he is. Commish. This new normal can be a little stressful, right?
Yeah, it is very interesting. To say the least.
Right. Well, we're glad to have you on board.
Give me 1 second, please. Give me 1 second.
Okay, please. Let's settle down. We're good.
Give me 1 second.
Absolutely.
Give me 1 second.
Matthew, that you laughing?
No, that is not me. I think that's Commissioner.
Okay.
All right, so we are live.
He's
We just want to make sure that any background noises are closed out so that the people that are listening to us live right now can hear us clearly. We are about to go live on Facebook right now. So for those that have access to Facebook, please create a watch party in the next few seconds with the Miami-Dade Chamber. Right now, we are just having a few technical difficulties at the moment, but we are going to get through this very quickly. All right. Yes, Jonah, yes. So you just muted everyone, so I think the background is done. We are live on Facebook, so feel free to share. I know that I think we just lost the commissioner at the moment. But Eric, as I reach out to the commissioner, you want to text me his information, I'll reach out to him, help him get started. And you want to talk to the people about this new normal and your experience being on the panel. You're muted right now, Eric. I can hear you.
In this new normal, there are technical difficulties. One of those things like me unmuting
there we
myself
go. Now we can hear you.
instead of just talking to myself. Yes, I am unmuted. And I was saying in this new normal, there are challenging times, obviously, that we're facing, but technology, we're using technology more than we ever have to communicate and to meet. And sometimes there are a few hiccups. So that's one thing that we have to learn to be patient as we work through those challenging moments as we connect with one another. But I'm excited about having Commissioner Moss on. We did have him there for a second and we lost him. So Matthew is working on bringing him back in. I hope you all have been safe this week. The county has reopened Miami-Dade County, and looks like commissioner's coming back in. But the county mayor has opened up Miami-Dade County starting this week, but not every business is open. And I know that Commissioner Moss has been very involved with this process. He's been sitting in on probably almost all of the meetings for the various industries that are being open, whether it's restaurants, small interior spaces, large interior spaces, manufacturing. Right now, as we speak, there are groups meeting with speaking about daycare and how daycare and camps are going to open up this summer. I know the one concern a lot of parents have is that if they're going back to work, what's going to happen with their kids? So we do have Commissioner Moss on. I'm just so excited and proud to have him here. You know, Commissioner Moss, I believe, and I was going to look this up before I got started, but as I was scrambling, probably, and not saying this in a derogatory way, but probably, I believe you're the oldest sitting commissioner on the commission right now, correct?
Well, first of all, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
We hear you and we see you.
Okay, fantastic. First of all, let me say good afternoon to all of your members and everyone who is Zooming with us. And as you stated earlier, you know, technical difficulties come as we deal with this whole new normal. I don't know about being the oldest.
Well,
myself and Senator Soto, we are the longest serving.
There you go.
Commissioners on the Board of County Commission, and with term limits now, that record's probably not going to be broken.
Correct. And so before we get started in today's topic, I just want to thank you for your years of service. You have held the mantle and have made sure, I mean, you bring a sense of consistency, obviously, that is needed, a sense of history that this community has gone through over the years. And here we are now in 2020 in a place that I don't think any of us ever thought we would be in. And you are one of the ones at the helm helping guide us through this. As I was saying, you have been designated, I believe, as the commissioner to sit on the task force and listen and put your input as those various businesses have come together to look at what the new normal is. So I guess I would start the fact that and it's the mayor along with the commission that you made a decision to open up, start slowly opening up our community again, obviously with some businesses not being open. And I want to talk about that first, I guess, and then we'll go into the businesses that are open. We talk about PPP and your perspective on that and what has happened. But I know that hotels aren't opening yet. And what other businesses, from your perspective, aren't opening right now?
Well, and let me first of all say I want to commend you and the chamber for all the good work that you've done over the years, and certainly you have participated as a part of a number of these different groups that the mayor has put together to take a look at where we are in the process and what we need to do going forward in order to basically allow more of our businesses to open up, but to do it in such a manner that it is safe for our residents, safe for the employees and the business owners, themselves. And I'd just like to say to everyone that all along the way, every step along the way, the decisions that have been made to open up, what businesses at what time, those decisions have been guided by those principles and also been guided by the fact that there are medical experts and professionals who sit on
Right.
all of the mayor's working committees, and they're not shy. They're not shy about, talking about what we need to do in order to make sure that people are safe. We can open up businesses, but people are safe as they basically patronize those particular businesses. And so, it's been done in a way that I'm not sure that a lot of other places have taken these kinds of steps, have been this careful about moving forward, and again, making sure that we have the support of the medical community here in Miami-Dade County in reference to the steps that we have taken. Now, of course, hotels, beaches, those things have not been open as of yet. Day camps, summer camps, and those things haven't, been opened yet. But those items or those particular businesses will open eventually, again, at the appropriate time. And the mayor is gauging that again with the advice and supervision and guidance of our medical professionals who are advising us and the commission as to which businesses, in industries we can open up, first of all, and then going through a phased in approach to open up other more difficult businesses later on.
Correct. So I know that a lot of people have been obviously staying safe, staying home, and people are, some folks understand that the only way this pandemic is really going to be pressed down is if we continue to do that. So what is your perspective on that in terms of staying home, staying safe, et cetera?
Let me, just say that this pandemic, COVID-19 is real. And I want to say that to our businesses because in some communities, there were earlier, I call them, urban legends, that certain individuals were not susceptible, to the COVID-19 virus. And I'm here to say that that is absolutely not true. We need to take this virus very seriously. And it has a more detrimental impact on certain communities, like the African-American community, simply because of the kinds of underlying morbidities, that many members in our community basically deal with. A lack of, the kind of healthcare services in many cases that may be available to other individuals who have, maybe private sector healthcare services. So, and I just want to quickly just relay something, to the group that's listening in. On April the 18th, excuse me, my wife and I, we buried, my father-in-law. And, he was a victim of the COVID-19 virus. The day before he passed, because we had not seen him the whole time that he was hospitalized and at the rehab center, and then finally brought to Jackson South the last couple of days of his life. But the day that we saw him, the day before he passed, we had a chance to do a FaceTime video with him because one of the doctors in the IU unit was gracious enough, to create that opportunity for us. And I got to tell you, my father-in-law was suffering, man. He looked like a drowning man, trying to get oxygen. And that's a part of the ravage of this virus. And so I say that to say to everyone, that, and he passed the next day. It was a horrible, horrible event that, he had to go through. And, it's something that we need to take very, very seriously. Now, having said that, at the same time, we can't continue to basically just hunker down, and not begin to try and do the best that we can to open up businesses so people can, be able to go back to work and earn a living, take care of their families. But what we have to do is we have to do it in the very, in the most safe way possible. Moving forward, so again, we have to do that balance. But I just want to say to those that are on the line that this virus is serious, and we have to take it serious out here. There's nothing to play around with. So as we open up our businesses, we need to make sure that we adhere to the CDC guidelines, adhere to the guidelines, that the mayor has in his emergency declarations. And, make sure that we do the very best that we can to protect those who are coming to patronize our businesses and to protect our employees and yourself as we move forward, because again, this virus is a serious, serious virus. And we got to find a way to be able to reopen our businesses carefully, guided by the best medical advice that we can get, and make sure that we follow those particular guidelines as we hopefully can find a vaccine or some other way to basically be able to mitigate COVID-19.
Well, I know that, to your point, the county has come out with a 180-page document that basically spells out how a business should conduct itself, not just from the guest experience, but from the employees that are coming there as well. Checking temperatures as before they come to work, making sure if they're not feeling well that they don't come to work. So as you said, along with the doctors, the medical experts, this has been taking place for the last couple of months. And the other thing that you said, in our community, obviously the Chamber's focus is the Black business community, minorities, and women. And the Black and brown communities are suffering more than any other communities when it comes to the effects of COVID-19 because of our illnesses, whether it's obesity, whether it's high blood pressure, whether whatever that we those the illnesses that we suffer through. The morbidity, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. The other side of it, when we start talking about the PPP, and initially we all know at this point the challenges that took place the first round of money that came out to the communities, and now here we are in the second round, and my understanding that there is $98 billion that's still sitting there, and a lot of our community still has not received any PPP or EIDL dollars. But that's another pandemic in our community as businesses where we suffer because, as I call it, we're playing business. In other words, we don't have the back of our house together. We don't have our accounting together. We don't have an accountant or a CPA. We don't have attorneys looking over our business structure. So what would you say about our businesses? And the other part of that, I understand that only this week that the county has put $5 million into the community to help those businesses that did not receive the PPP the first or second round, and is being done through Tools for Change and PSE, Partners for Self-Employment, and it will be a grant up to $25,000. But the one thing I'll say, Commissioner Moss, the stipulations in getting those dollars are still somewhat restrictive in our community.
Well, let me just say that as relates to the PPP, I was very skeptical from the outset, and I figured it was going to basically be a program that helped, the usual suspects, and, would not be as helpful to small and micro businesses, some of the kind of businesses that, your members and our, community members basically, operate. So again, we decided that we were going to move forward with putting together a loan program. I mean, it's not a massive amount of money, but we have a $5 million loan program. You pretty much laid it out, pretty well in terms of it will be for individuals who have not gotten access to the PPP funding, individuals who have 25 or less employees. It will go up to $25,000, and it's a forgivable loan. It's the type of loan that if you maintain the employees on the back end, that the loan would basically be forgiven. And so I would advise everyone to really try and take advantage of that, to apply for support, if you need that support moving forward. Now, you've laid out some things to me that I've not had an opportunity to really take a look at, and you're saying that there are certain difficulties involving individuals being able to apply for, these funds. And so what I would say to that is that if there are some suggestions that the chamber has as it relates to trying to help us, perhaps make, the loan program more accessible, then we would certainly, listen to those concerns. We have to bear in mind at the end of the day, though, that, we have to adhere to certain guidelines because these are community development block grant funds. And, in Miami-Dade County in the past, we found ourselves in a position that when, those funds have not been utilized appropriately, we wind up having to pay funds back, which meant that every year, the allocation that we were getting through the community development block grant program was reduced because we were basically trying to make up for some, issues that we had previously with the allocation or the granting of funding, in the past. So again, if there are some, some recommendations that the chamber, has as it relates to, things that maybe we can do better and still maintain the integrity of the program, then certainly that's something that we will take a look at. The idea is not to try to make it so difficult that nobody can access the funding. That doesn't do anybody any good. We want to make sure that the funding is accessed, that it's completely used, is used appropriately, that sort of a thing, and that there are no repercussions back to the county after the fact, because people are going to be coming in and taking a look at how the money was spent, after the fact, and we want to make sure that everybody, basically does their part.
Yes, sir, and we definitely will look at it and look at what could be done to help reduce some of the restrictions that may prevent our community from receiving those funds. I know it is a first come, first serve basis. I know we will be working with Tools for Change and PSE to help get those dollars out into the community. I know that this year is, as you said, you longest sitting commissioner. What does the future look like for Commissioner Moss?
Well, and before I go to that, I also want to make sure, that your audience, that they know that we have what's called small business startup kits. And
I'm glad you brought that up.
And those are kits that we have available, about 1,000 of them. And what they do is, they're kits that have, a limited amount of PPE equipment, if you will, personal protection equipment, to help some of the small and particularly micro businesses, kind of get up, get themselves, in the proper way and be able to open up and to participate again in the economy. One of the things that we heard from you, we heard particularly from Leroy Jones and Nana, who's also, basically manning the Tools for Change portion of the $5 million loan, was that the concern was that in some of the businesses, particularly in some of our Black and brown communities, that you will basically have businesses there who would not have access to PPE and therefore would not properly, basically be able to provide safety to their customers and to their employees as customers who would come in to patronize their businesses. And so in order to be somewhat helpful, we have these kits that are available. Like I said, we had about 1,000 when we started, and I would basically, encourage, your members who need it. And again, I say who need it. If your members have it and they're able to take care of, their needs, they should do that, and then allow, the other remaining kits to be available to those small and particularly micro businesses, little mom and pop businesses in the community, to have access to that PPE equipment so that they can basically make sure that they're observing, the health and safety guidelines that they should be observing. And that way it makes it better for the customers who are coming in. They're protected. And again, you need to wear your face mask and, those kinds of things. It was an interesting show on this morning where Governor Cuomo was talking about the fact that you have all of these, first, your paramedics, your police,
first responders.
Responders, who are basically coming in contact, with individuals who have, the COVID virus, and that their numbers, are extremely lower than you find as relates to the general public. And, he attributed that, to the fact that these individuals are wearing their PPEs. And so the point is that, the PPEs, the masks, they work. And so let's make sure that, all of our businesses, let's make sure that we observe the guidelines set out by the CDC, the guidelines that are basically set up by the mayor and the county, and we do the right thing by the community. As far as Commissioner Moss is concerned, I'm certainly looking at, some other opportunities to stay involved in the community. I've not given up on the idea of the creation of a city in South Miami-Dade County that would include communities like Richmond Heights and West Perrine and Goulds, South Miami Heights, those kinds of things. A city, if it's created, would be the third largest city in all of Miami-Dade County. It would be larger than Miami Gardens, be larger than Coral Gables, be larger than Miami Beach. Only the city of Miami and Hialeah would be larger in that sense. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to work on, as I leave office and afterwards, to see if there's a way to give the people in my area an opportunity to vote on whether or not they want to do self-governance and create their own cities. And again, the county does a great job, on countywide issues and whatnot, but cities do a better job on city-type stuff. And I just believe that our community, deserves an opportunity to at least vote and decide whether or not they want to incorporate and become their own municipality. So those are some things that I'm working on, along with just making sure that all of the other projects that I've worked on over the years that are still coming to fruition, to make sure that those are followed through on. And I'm sure that whoever replaces me as a new commissioner in District 9 will follow through on those particular issues, and I will certainly be there to help and support and do what I can to make sure that the community continues to move forward.
That's interesting when you say Richmond Heights and Goulds, et cetera. I guess it takes me back to when we used to say Carroll City. And we don't say Carroll City that much anymore. Obviously, that's Miami Gardens. And the reality, I tell you, I guess I didn't really realize that they weren't cities. They are communities within South Miami.
Unincorporated Miami-Dade County.
Unincorporated. Yeah.
Right.
That's very interesting. But I know you have been a champion down in South Florida, South Dade County, I guess I would say. You were very instrumental in the zoo coming to South Dade. I know there are many other projects that you've been working on, but where do you see us in the next 60 days when it comes to our businesses opening, COVID-19? And then, they talk about the winter. They say it's going to be the dark winter. So in the next 60 days and then moving into the winter, where do you see us?
Well, I pray and I hope to God, that we don't enter into a dark winter. And I'm hoping that we can, begin to, again, open up, some of our businesses as time goes on. Again, doing it very carefully, being guided by the science and by our medical professionals, and utilizing, their advice. And it's a big unknown. There's going to be a new normal in this town and around, this country. And the thing that you have to think about is that, we had Ebola, we had H1N1, we had swine flu, we had, bird flu, we had all kinds of flus and epidemics, but this is a pandemic that basically shut the whole world down. Correct. And so everybody's trying to, figure out on the fly, how do we manage this going forward? And so nobody really has a crystal ball, at this particular point in time. But like I said, I hope to God that we're able to open up our businesses and get our economy, back to some semblance of new normal going forward, but doing it in a very safe way so that we protect, our residents and protect ourselves, because this, again, as I stated earlier, this is not something, to play with. This is real.
Yes, sir. Speaking about the new normal, obviously a lot of us have been working from our homes, Zooming. Uh, we haven't been in our cars driving. And, one of our biggest challenges here in Dade County, Miami-Dade County, has been traffic. So do you see much of an adjustment? Obviously, I think a lot of businesses will realize that their employees can work from home. What is your perspective on that? And I know the county employees are now working from home. So give us your perspective on the working from home model.
Well, that's a part of the new normal. And the mayor has been pushing really, really hard to try and make sure the county employees who can work from home, that they have the opportunity to work from home. Again, it will help with our traffic situation. I've not had so many meetings or been able to attend so many meetings, because of utilizing technology, because normally you have to get in your car, you got to drive an hour to a meeting, and you go to the meeting, and so you may be able to do 1 or 2 meetings a day. But with the technology of Zooming, you can have, this is my 3rd meeting. Since 2 o'clock today, I had a TPO meeting, and Transportation Planning Organization meeting. I was in the mayor's staff meeting. And now I'm here, with you and your group. That would not have been possible, were it not for this technology. So, going forward, that's going to have an impact on office, buildings, and other kinds of things, and traffic, because people are now realizing out of necessity, that you have to do these kinds of meetings utilizing technology, simply because, the virus is basically such a tremendous problem in the community. So we'll see what happens, as we come out the other end of this process, and see exactly what we've learned from it, and, what's going to change and how it's going to change. But again, this is a book that hasn't been written, and we're writing it on the fly.
Correct. I know we have some questions. I'm going to bring Matthew back in. And I know, Matthew is our manager dealing with our micro loan program, as well as our technical assistance, but also he serves as the mayor of Opa-locka. So we appreciate what he brings to our community, not just from the perspective of the chamber, but obviously as an elected official, and seeing the challenges we have in our various communities. So Matthew.
Well, and let me say before the mayor comes on, that I want to commend him, and his colleagues over at the city of Opa-locka in terms of what they're doing. In just reading some things recently, it looks like they're heading in the right direction. And I want to wish them the very best. And I'm hoping that, that they can work through this process. And, the Baghdad of the South, as one of my friends used to say, that hopefully, that continues as a viable, city here in Miami-Dade County. And I will certainly support that. And again, I just wish him well. And I'm saying that whatever we can do to be helpful, we will be there to try to support it.
Commissioner Moss, I just want to just thank you for many years. Your leadership on the county commission has been a pillar of light for many young elected officials, and also people that have been interested in stepping up to leadership in our community. So much respect for all that you have been doing to serve in this role as an elected official, because now that I've been in it for almost 3 years now, wouldn't wish it on anybody.
hey, no good deed goes unpunished.
So yeah, thank you very much for your leadership, and you're right. We have been making some very significant changes from the past with the city of Opa-locka, and we are turning this ship around pretty dramatically over the past few years. And dealing with crisis after crisis. This coronavirus is another crisis on top of the pile of crises that we're currently addressing. So much respect for taking the time to do that. And also, again, on behalf of the chamber and also the business memberships here, we want to thank you for your insight and understanding that you've shared with us today. One of the first questions that we've gotten is actually from one of our members who owns a janitorial company, and he's interested in the loan program you mentioned. Where can people find those guidelines about the loan program?
Well, I'm sure that Eric has access to them. Tools for Change. Leroy Jones, who runs NANA, he runs our small business program, mom and pop small business program all over Miami-Dade County, and has for years. He is his organization is one of the organizations that basically would be providing the funding support and that sort of thing. He's an excellent reference for the Black businesses in the community, and again he would be in the best position to provide you and walk you through and guide you as you basically make an application for the program. But I would encourage everyone who needs support and help, I would just encourage you to apply. Doesn't guarantee that you're going to get funding or you're going to get the amount of funding that maybe you're asking for. But if you don't apply, so if you're not in the game, you can't win. And so it's important to to go on ahead and to apply, and hopefully we are in a position to help as many businesses as we can. And then on top of that, if you're not helped in this round, there may be other funding may come down, through the federal government, or through the state, that then may be available. And again, if you've got an application already in and you didn't get funding the first time around, then it places you in a good position to go on ahead and get funding for the next round of funding that may be coming. And I hope that, that additional, funds are basically released to, again, work with small businesses, but as important, to work with micro businesses, the really small mom and pop businesses in our community, who don't have access to capital, who don't have access to the banks, who've run the PPP program. Some are unbanked, and again, but they still need help and support in order to get up and to run and operate. And then on top of that, for many segments of our community, they may be the only source of commerce available in those neighborhoods. And so it's important to make sure that they are able to get up and running and to provide services as well.
Awesome, thank you. And for those that are listening online and through Zoom, you can put your questions and comments in the Q&A box so that we can get to them and organize our responses. And for those that are on Facebook watching live, you can put your comments there and we'll be able to try and get to them as much as possible. We'll strongly encourage you to click the link to register and really quickly to join us on Zoom, so you can put those questions and answers in the Q&A box while we have the president of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, and also Eric Knowles, and also Commissioner Dennis Moore from Miami-Dade County, to address this new normal and how businesses navigate this new normal. So the next question that we have is from someone who's a part of the Jamaican Nurses Association of Florida, and they're asking if there's any support or resources for local nonprofit organizations with this PPP funding, those that don't have a payroll, because they're also being hurt. A lot of the fundraising activities have been canceled due to this new norm and these emergency orders. So what do local nonprofit organizations do?
Well, again, I believe, and I stand to be corrected on this, that the funding that we're basically the $5 million program is intended to help small and micro sized businesses in the community. As far as community-based organizations are concerned, again, I'm hoping that additional resources come down through the federal government, that we're able to help those CBOs out there in the community. Now, the thing about the CBOs who are currently a part of the funding process, in Miami-Dade County, their funding has continued. And I think that in most cases, just about all that I know, where you've got community-based organizations out there who may be funded by the Children's Trust, who may be funded by other funding sources by Miami-Dade County, that funding has continued to be provided because we understand that indeed, the nonprofits, have no control over what happens with COVID. And so, we've been there to try to support them, to get them through this process, and to have them in a position that whenever their services are needed as we open things up in the community, and we will do that, that indeed they are there and in place and able to provide services. Because, the difficult thing about, nonprofits, I ran a nonprofit for over 40 years. Difficult things about nonprofits is just like the businesses out there, the small grassroots nonprofit organizations, they struggle just like the small businesses and micro businesses struggle, in our community. Access to the resources and those things just aren't the same, And so again, we have to try and undergird as many nonprofits as we can out there in the community and try to support those and hold on to those that we have that particularly are serving, Black and brown communities, because again, once they're gone, they're gone. And we've seen over the years, just a number of nonprofit organizations basically go away, and they've not been replaced, by other organizations in the community. And so again, we don't have a specific program right now, but I'm hoping that as additional resources come down, through the federal government, that perhaps we're in a position to allocate some of those resources the same way we're doing with the $5 million program for small and micro businesses.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, very helpful. You had a question about how our reopening, this is actually pretty broad, how our reopen is going to be different from China. And China's been doing quite a bit about these cases. They've been locking things down. They're working on vaccines. If you have any insight, how do you see us being different from China or using some of their best practices, or is that a consideration with Miami-Dade County?
Well, we're going to, again, depend on, our medical professionals, and we have some great medical professionals in Miami-Dade County, and they are not shy about, making sure, that their recommendations, are the ones that we follow and that we go by. I think that just overall here in the United States, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at what's happening in other parts of the world and seeing, those who've gotten out of the box a little bit faster than we have, seeing what they do and seeing what kind of outcomes they basically find themselves in. And then we're going to use some of those examples, some of those best practices as you talked about, to kind of guide along with, again, the medical professionals here in Miami-Dade County, at least, kind of guide us as we open up businesses along the way. But we've got to find a way to get back to a new normal as far as business is concerned. So many people have lost their jobs. One of the things that we've done as relates to unemployment compensation, because there was such a problem with just trying to access the computer system, what we did was work out something with the governor where we're able to basically take, written applications from our residents. We're working with Rick Beasley, and Rick and his shop, they overnight those applications, to the state of Florida in order to go on ahead and make sure that those applications get processed. And we've been trying to press upon, the state, to make sure that they take care of our people, here in Miami-Dade County. But we did it in order to make sure that people had another alternative in order to get their applications in as it relates to unemployment compensation. But at the end of the day, we're going to kind of look at what everybody else is doing, observe and listen to the medical professionals, and try to make the very best decision that we can with the information that we have at the time.
Got it. All right. So Eric, I see last question I see here so far is about churches and whether churches are being considered for these loans or these back to business boxes. or
From what I
how church is
understand,
being
and
considered in
Commissioner
this
Moss, you
new
correct
norm,
me.
Commissioner Moss.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner. Hope we didn't lose. There you are. Churches were a part of the first and the second PPP as far as receiving PPP loans, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I would encourage, churches to go on ahead and to make an application for those funds. And again, if you can still make an application, do it, because, if you don't get funding this time around, I'm hoping that there is going to basically be another round, if you will, of funding available, whether it be to look at infrastructure projects throughout the country, but also dealing with the issue of small and micro businesses, churches, and those kinds of institutions moving forward who need help as well.
Yes, sir. I also know, as we were speaking earlier, there's still $98 billion out there. And there are institutions, I know initially we had challenges with the big banks. And so the government opened it up for credit unions, opened it up. PayPal is taking loans. There was another company that we sent a lot of our members to, lendistry.com, which a lot of people actually received their loans through Lendistry, but also the largest Black bank in the United States, which happens to be in our community, One United Bank, is still taking applications. They weren't a business bank, but because of the pandemic, they have stepped into the arena. They were awarded by SBA to become a lender, and several of our members have applied through One United, and they're getting loans. So if anyone has not gotten a loan, it's because they're not doing the work, or they didn't have their business in order, or they don't know. A matter of fact, I was just on a Zoom the other day with Mike Finney from the Beacon Council, and Mike mentioned he was talking to a business that had no idea in our community, didn't know what a PP, didn't know that those monies were available. So when I talk about that, in terms of getting it out to the community, and I actually charged my staff the other day, how do we get this word out to the community that, they're not connected somehow from getting the information that this stuff is even there? How do we do that?
Well, we've got to use the technology that we have, in meetings like this that you're doing and trying to get the word out, and the work that Leroy Jones does and others in this community is a way that we're going to have to basically go. But, if you've got a TV or a radio, PPP has been talked about every day, yeah. Just about, Yeah. Now I can understand that people, feel like, well, this is not for me. But again, I'm encouraging folks to go on ahead and to apply because there may be, even if you like you said, there are resources that haven't been allocated yet, and there may be additional availability of resources being made, by the federal government, in the future. So you want to make sure that you at least that you're in line. If you're not in line, then you're not going to have a chance to basically participate. And again, I understand that the usual suspects, they got theirs, but I'm hoping that with maybe this other allocation that hopefully will be coming down, that others will have an opportunity to take advantage of it as well.
Well, to your point, one of our members, she was very reluctant in the beginning to apply for the PPP or the EIDL. And I'm proud or excited that she came on yesterday, and she actually received, because of the size of her business, she received the $10,000 because she has 16 employees. So that emergency grant, she received that. And now just yesterday, I believe she received the EIDL loan, which could be paid back in 30 years at 3.5%. But initially, she didn't want to apply. And so she applied for that. She applied for the PPP, and she has received. And the other thing about this, as we were talking earlier, and I was listening to someone, you may have mentioned, this is our money. This is taxes that we have paid over the years that's basically coming back to our community.
Well, and again, how did she find out about it? Were you able to provide her with that information?
Yeah, we did, yes.
Okay. And see, and that's the wonderful thing about it. I mean, it just shows the role that you play in the community along with other organizations, that we have to encourage, people in our community. We have to encourage them to participate,
Absolutely.
to go out and apply. You never know basically what will happen, and yeah, we have to get our act together. That type of thing.
That's the other side. We got to get our act together.
We got to do that, that type of thing, But in the meantime, we're in desperate, throes right now. And we need to do whatever we can to try to get additional resources into the hands of these business people, and so that they can basically survive, take care of their employees and service the community.
Yeah, and what you're saying also, and this is just a little small anecdote. It's not an anecdote, but I tell people, call your car insurance company. The car insurance companies are giving discounts because we're not driving our cars as much. And a lot of people, it's a word of mouth. And I mentioned that there's probably someone who's listening right now that didn't realize that they can call their insurance company. State Farm, I believe, is giving 25% off, et cetera, and the others as well. And one of our members yesterday, because we do this 4 o'clock every day, we've been doing this, Commissioner Moss, every day for the last 2 months, giving information like this.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful.
And one of our members mentioned that he called his business insurance company and he was able to negotiate a reduction in his business insurance because of what's going on right now.
Well, again, I mean, that's the important role, that your organizations and other organizations in the community, play. Because many times people feel like this is not for me. But as you stated earlier, this is our money. This is everybody's money, and so you shouldn't feel that it's only, for somebody else. And it's not something that's available, for me. And then we have a responsibility, those of us who are elected and those of us who are appointed and run organizations like yours, to really advocate, for the individuals in this community who don't have the political clout, the usual suspects, as I say, in this community, and who they're going to get theirs. But we've got to advocate to make sure that individuals in our community who, normally, aren't participating or aren't allowed to participate or can't participate in the process, we've got to fight for them to try to make sure that they have a chance to participate as well.
Absolutely. And the one thing I will say, anytime you and I talk, you remind me that I need to be in the room to make sure you are.
Hey, that's on my checklist here, man. And I'm going to say it to everybody, again, every Board of County Commission meeting, somebody should be down there advocating for a way to allow businesses in our community, Black businesses, to participate in the process. You can't come down there all angry and all that kind of, because that's not going to get you anywhere, and you know the makeup of the Board of County Commissions. So I'm just being real, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is, if you can come down there and basically, provide us with some recommendations as to how we can do these things differently and provide access, to members, in your organization and other members in the community, then those are the kinds of suggestions that we can, sit down and take a look at and do something, basically with. And as I always say to you now, you don't have to stay down there and wait on each item to come up like you used to have to do in the past. You can basically register, and you got 2 minutes to come in, before the meeting starts, as a part of our public participation process. And you have a chance to talk about everything that's on the agenda, unless there's a public hearing that's coming up. And normally the public hearings don't have, the bread and butter, kind of concession stuff, that business is really interested in, the contracts, and those kinds of things. And so I would come down there and make sure that at every meeting that I've gone through, and maybe you get your committee or group together and you go through and you see what's basically available. Do you have individuals, in the organization or in the community who can basically handle that particular job, or and so on and so forth? And if so, how would you recommend that we in the county perhaps break those contracts up so that individuals who are in your organization will have a chance to compete for, those contracts? And see, that's the positive, helpful way to basically do it. Again, you come down there all angry and all that, people are not going to listen to you, that sort of a thing. But you come down there with, a plan and a suggestion and a recommendation as to what we can do to make things more accessible to the businesses that you represent, in our community, then those are the kinds of things that we can look at and try to make policy of. Many times when you see legislation that comes down, it's not because the county commissioner has thought of that legislation. It's because someone has provided them with a good idea that'll make a difference in the community. And then that idea is taken and basically made into legislation, that if passed, then provides some support and some opportunities and those kinds of things. So that's what I would encourage your organization to do. Again, you may want to just get together, a committee, and their thing is to go every time there's a Board of County Commission meeting coming up, to go through and take a look at all the contracts. Because we allocate millions of dollars of contracts, every 2 weeks at the Board of County Commissioners. And so take a look at those contracts and then try to figure out, well, what's the best way, to create an opportunity for the members, in our organizations who have the capability of doing this stuff. Now, you can't come down there advocating for some stuff and you don't have anybody, who's ready to, ready to deal, ready to make a move. But I would suggest that, again, because you don't have to stay all day to wait on the item to come up. You can come up and talk about an item, and when we see you down there on a regular basis, that helps us,
right?
To basically be a better advocate, if you will, for the businesses in your organization and businesses in the community.
Well, Commissioner Moss,
I want to jump in on that real quickly, because Commissioner Moss hit on something that I think is near and dear to all of us that participate in organizations and institutions. I know that President Knowles always talks about you get out of the organization what you put in. So it's about being engaged. And as Commissioner Moss saying, we need people to get more engaged. We can't do anything unless the people buy in and engage with us. So I know we talked about how do we get information out. Just as though we spread the word about these conspiracy theories and what we don't like and all this, we got to spread the word about these resources. Spread the word by sharing these town halls, sharing these flyers about information. Those things tend to get the least amount of likes and least amount of shares. I know when I post things, when I share things, or when the city share things, and it's on each of us as individuals, people watching, those of us to really use our platforms to spread the word and get engaged as much as possible. Those, we all know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Simple as that. And we need people that's going to step up and share that information. So I actually had a few questions in the chat and that we actually already answered. People wanted to know, Commissioner Moss, what's the next public hearing date and time? And I've shared the website, Miami-Dade County Commission government website, where you can get the information about the latest meetings, board agendas, and minutes. If you want to learn more about how to contact the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, you can go to our website, m-dcc.org, our contact. So there's plenty of information. It's out there. And we're here to be a resource to you as much as possible. So with that, Mr. Knowles, you got the floor.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank Commissioner Moss for this time. Our time has flown by. I got my phone on with my Facebook, and so I don't see the time. I believe we're a little bit after 5 o'clock, but I definitely want to thank you and allow you to give some closing remarks. And again, thank you for the years of service, and look forward to that new city down in South Dade and anything we could do to help push that.
Eric, thank you so much. And Mayor, thank you for what you're doing as well. Again, I want to commend you on on the moves I see happening in the city of Opa-locka. And to all of your listeners and to everyone who's Zooming with us and Facebooking, with us. Again, we have certain resources available. I'm, basically encouraging you to apply, to work with Leroy Jones at Tools for Change and PSC, and work with the Miami-Dade Chamber. You just heard, a couple examples of people who thought that they couldn't, that they wouldn't be able to participate, but through the encouragement of the chamber, Miami-Dade Chamber, they applied and they were successful. And so again, I would just encourage you, this is everybody's money. It's my money, your money, and everybody's money. And so, don't think that this is for someone else and it's not, for us. Again, let's be safe out there. This virus, as I talked about it, is real. And, let's do the best that we can, listening to medical professionals and to the science in terms of being able to try and move forward with opening up our businesses as carefully as we can. But let's make sure that we, again, just remember that COVID-19 is nothing to play with.
Commissioner Moss, once again, thank you. I look forward to engaging with you at the county as we advocate for opportunities.
Always looking for you, man.
All right, so I guess it's on the Zoom now, since we're not going.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll see you on the next Zoom.
All right, fantastic.
All right,
thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Be safe.
As I said, we have been doing this every day at 4 o'clock. Today is a special guest, Commissioner Moss. Next week, Wednesday, we have a workshop in the morning. Matthew, I'm gonna let you talk about that because I start to forget which ones are which. I know that's what you keep up with.
Yeah, so every day next week, we will have our daily Zoom calls at 4 o'clock. You can go to the chamber page or to our Facebook to get the link and join in as we have those daily calls. So you have any issues or have any resources you want to share with the business community in our group, please join us for our daily calls so we can get that information out to you and you can share what you have with us. On Wednesday, we will have an event where we actually pull back the SBA, Althea Harris, who's the Assistant Director of Community Outreach for the SBA. She'll be back on to answer questions about the PPP and the EIDL. So make sure to join us Wednesday at 4 o'clock for that information. And on Thursday, we'll have one of our members of the chamber, Dr. Delvina Thomas, who's a board certified psychiatrist. She'll be coming in to talk about mental health during this time, especially for business owners, and some mental health strategies you can apply during this COVID-19 time. What we're doing here at the chamber, we're trying to create a comprehensive support system around our business owners during this COVID-19. So during our daily top calls and during these TA workshops, this is your opportunity to share those resources. Join in with us. Let us know what are the issues so that we can continue to create programming and provide resources to you. So thank you very much for joining us today. We strongly encourage you to join the chamber during this time because together, united, we're stronger together and we're able to leverage our collective powers as a business organization to get the resources that we need for our individual businesses. So thank you very much for joining us today.
One last thing, Matthew, before we
go. I
didn't
mention Commissioner Moss. I didn't say thank you for your support for Opa-locka over these past few years as we've been turning this boat around. Much respect to the county commission. We would not be where we are today if it wasn't for Miami-Dade County stepping in to assist us with our water and a few other problems. So thank you so much, Commissioner Moss, for being there for us.
And
it's Barbara Jordan.
Yes, she had it. That's number one. We actually just opened up a testing center because of her advocacy in the city of Oklahoma. Again, just much respect for the whole county commission, especially Commissioner Barbara Jordan. That's how she wrote right there. No doubt about it.
So the last comment I'm going to make, and a reminder by Joan Howard, who's listening in, and Commissioner, you may want to chime in on this, the 2020 census. Dollars come to our community because of the census. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of engaging and responding to the census. So that would be the last thing I'd like for you to speak on, Commissioner, before we hang up.
Well, Eric, the census is extremely, extremely important. And I know that we are caught up, in this pandemic and trying to work through all of these issues, but we've got to fill out that census form, because the census is what drives the funding and the resources that come to our community. And if we have individuals in the community who are not counted, we'll be in a position where we're still providing services to them, but without the requisite resources that would be available if they were counted in the census and we had, the largest number of individuals accounted for going forward. So I would encourage everyone, me and the wife sat down and filled out ours. It took us about 5 minutes to complete it. Please fill out the census and send that information in, because that drives a lot of the resources that come to our community, whether it be community development block grant funding, funding for Head Start, funding for healthcare, so on and so forth. We need to make sure that we count all of the people in Miami-Dade County so we get our fair share, because what's going to happen is we're sending our money up there and it's going to be going to other communities who basically did well in their census count. They're the ones that are going to get the money, and we're the ones that are going to be the ones sending it up to Washington. So please, 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 please fill out your census and make sure that everyone is counted. Thank you.
Thank you. And then tell your cousin, tell grandma, tell everybody, fill out the census.
Yes,
All right. Thank you again, Commissioner Moss. And thank you all for joining us today on our daily Zoom. This has been a great opportunity to get the word from our commissioner. And again, Godspeed. And I look forward to continuing our engagement.
I look forward to seeing you at the chamber.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care.